All right, perfect. Great. Thank you for having me here. By the way, now I'm a fourth year PhD student, so progress in the last year. I should update my website. So before going into the specific details of my project, I'll just very briefly introduce my research motivation and interests. I like to start with a very simple example from an introductory AI class that I took, and it left a very lasting impression on me. So consider this robot or agent in this very simple grid world, where the box in green provides a reward of +1, and the red box provides a reward of -1. And now the agent can take 4 actions: up, down, right, and left. And with 90% probability, it moves in the direction of the intended action. And with 10% probability, it moves randomly in the other 3 directions. Now, the goal of the agent is to maximize the cumulative rewards it accumulates in its lifetime. Now, imagine that each step costs a little bit, such that the agent receives a small negative reward of 0.001 for every step it takes. Now, in this case, the optimal policy, that is the best action to take in every state, would look something like this, indicating that the agent would be overwhelmingly taking actions to avoid the negative red state, and it would really prefer to go towards the positive green state. Okay, now let's consider a second scenario where the agent is less happy, such that each step costs -2. So now the agent receives a negative reward of -2 for every step it takes. Now, in this case, because each step the agent is taking is more costly than the reward offered by the green state, for more than half the states, the agent would actually prefer to go towards the red state. Now, for AI researchers, this is a very nice demonstration about the importance of optimal reward design, such that you can build robots to pursue desirable behavior. As a cognitive scientist, I find this very simple example to be quite profound and deep, because it's a very nice demonstration of how rewards can serve as a window to cognition. Now, this point that is regarding understanding our rewards to understand cognition lies at the heart of my research. In my research, I am interested in understanding anything and everything about this thing, what we call in neuroscience reinforcement learning reward, or in economic terms, goods, and daily life desires or wants. So questions like, where do our rewards come from? How do we learn our reward functions? How do our rewards change over time, culture, and generations? And importantly, how can we modulate and control our own wants and desires? So in this vein, major focus of my work has been inspired by the scientific process, with the goal of making the process of learning itself very fun and rewarding. So some of my work has explored things like understanding curiosity and eureka movements. And this in turn also has some applications for AI, where some of my past work has explored how prior knowledge can enable efficient exploration in machines, as well as some applications in education, where my work, some of my work has concentrated on influencing curiosity for everyday scientific topics. Now with this, I'll just present some of my work on curiosity. And I just want to note that while I'm saying I'm presenting this work, this was a very collaborative project, and my immense gratitude for my advisor, Tom. Without this project could not have been possible. So why do I care about curiosity, and why should you care? So personally speaking, I don't think anybody understands the value of curiosity more than academics. Many of us over here, I presume, are PhD students or have completed a PhD. And PhD is notoriously known for being a very, very sparsely rewarding environment. We have very little extrinsic motivating factors like money, fame, or even papers. And through all of this uncertainty, we still manage to make progress along our research. And perhaps that one thing that keeps us going is that we are all curious about the human mind, and we are fascinated by its mysteries. One of my favorite quotes comes from Herbert Simon, who said that curiosity is not only the beginning of all science, but also its end as well. So if we want to train the next generation of scientists, perhaps it's important we cultivate curiosity in them. Now, if we ask ourselves the very important question, what prompts curiosity in a learner? Surprisingly, the field does not have conclusive answers yet. So previous theories remain divided, and they generally fall under 2 camps. novelty-based and complexity-based theories. Novelty-based theories say that new and unknown stimuli draw people's curiosity. That is, the less confident you are that you know something, the more curious you are. And the more confident you are that you know something, the less curious you are. Complexity-based theories suggest that curiosity is driven by moderately complex stimuli. That is, curiosity is an inverted U-shaped function of confidence. If we know too little or too much, then we are not curious. Both these theories have found ample empirical support, but remember, they make orthogonal predictions, and thus the field has no unified view of curiosity. Now, in spite of all their orthogonal predictions, these theories do have something in common. They're all concerned with primarily describing how curiosity functions, but they do not answer why curiosity works the way it does. That is, why is curiosity even influenced by novelty or complexity in the first place? So inspired by this, in this work, we aim to provide a functional explanation of curiosity. That is, why do we have curiosity and what is its purpose? In this vein, we'll provide a rational computational level analysis of curiosity. And in doing so, we will reconcile these distinct theories of curiosity in a common framework. And to foreshadow, our theory suggests that novelty-based and complexity-based theories are special cases of a more general form of curiosity. And perhaps they are not as far apart as previously considered. Before going into the details, there are just some important things I'd like to clarify regarding the scope of our work. So first, in no way we are saying curiosity is rational or people's curiosity works exactly like our model. From our perspective, this framework that I'm presenting is just a useful tool that we can use to study and model people's curiosity. And another disclaimer and a potential limitation is that our framework does not distinguish between curiosity and information seeking, and neither are we explaining the epistemic emotion that curiosity elicits. So this is because our goal is to develop a framework that tells us what curiosity should do, as opposed to developing a process level account. And hopefully this framework can provide us some with new insights. So when we say we perform a rational analysis or a computational analysis, it consists of two steps. We will first consider the abstract computational problem underlying curiosity, and then we will derive the optimal solution to that problem. Let's begin by considering the computational problem underlying curiosity. And one final disclaimer before I go and talk about the framework. We will start off with a very toy and very abstract setting, but hopefully this will eventually give rise to more concrete predictions as we go along. So let's consider this scenario. This agent, it's a reward maximizing agent. It is in an environment that has a bunch of stimuli in it. Here, you can think of a stimulus as any item that can be learned or solved. It can be a task, it can be a puzzle, games, question, etc. Now, in this environment, rewards can only be attained in the future. Specifically, let's say that in some distant future, the agent encounters the kth stimulus again. If the agent produces the correct response or the right action to that stimulus, it will obtain a reward. If it produces the wrong action or incorrect response, it gets no reward. Now, an important point to note here is that these potential rewards are very far into the future. If it helps, you can think of studying for a test or practicing a skill. Now, you won't necessarily get extrinsic rewards for practicing or studying at the moment, but in the future, that skill or knowledge can give you some rewards. Now, given this, to maximize rewards, the agent ideally wants to go from knowing nothing to knowing the correct response for all stimuli in the environment. For sake of simplicity, let us assume that all stimuli have equal rewards and they're all uncorrelated. Now, if the agent had unlimited time or memory, it could know the correct response to all stimuli in the environment very easily, and it would get maximum rewards in the future. But that's not the case. Our poor agent is bounded and it does not have unlimited resources. The agent has limited time, energy, and memory. So given this, the goal of the agent is to figure out an effective exploration strategy to maximize its rewards in the future. So how can the agent solve this problem of prioritizing exploration? Now, one very crude way would be to do random exploration. The agent just randomly chooses a stimuli and learns about it. But that probably won't be very effective, especially in complex settings. Another way to solve this problem would be to align exploration with current knowledge. What do I mean by that? As a simple example, the agent should avoid exploring stimuli for which it already knows the correct response. This is because the agent will definitely get rewards for those stimulus in future, and it should not waste its time on it. So for every stimulus in the environment, the agent estimates the probability it will get the correct response. Here, darker shade means that the probability of getting the correct response is high and vice versa. We call this the confidence value of the agent, where the darker shade means the agent is more confident that it knows the correct response to the stimulus. A second way to align exploration would be to consider the future occurrence of various stimuli in the environment. For instance, if the agent knows that it will never encounter a particular stimulus in the future, then there is no need to explore the stimulus. So next, the agent estimates probability of occurrence of each stimulus. Here again, the darker shade means higher probability of occurrence in the future. So just to recap, all we are saying here is that CK, which is the confidence, is the agent's estimate about its current present knowledge about the stimulus in the world. And PK, which is probability of occurrence, is its estimate about the future probability of occurrence of these stimulus in the world. And both of these are valuable signals for exploration. Now, the agent also has a past where it has encountered some stimuli more than others. Now, here you see the stimulus in the red box has been seen more times in the past by the agent. We call this exposure. That is, number of times the agent has seen a stimulus in the past. Also, to be clear, when I'm saying that agent is encountering the stimulus, I also mean that it gets access to the correct response or the responses to that stimulus. Now here, the exposure determines confidence. That is, the more the agent has encountered a stimulus in the past, the higher its confidence will be. So over here, the stimulus in the blue box has been encountered more than the stimulus in the gray box, and hence the confidence of the agent is higher for the blue box stimulus. And an assumption we make here is that confidence increases with exposure, but at a decreasing rate. So as the agent gets to experience the stimulus, it will get more confident that it knows the correct response to the stimulus, but at a decreasing rate. So armed with all of this, the agent computes its value of knowledge. That is, how valuable is my current knowledge? Now let's consider this very simple case where every stimulus was equally likely to occur in the future. So the agent's value of knowledge would simply be the average of its current knowledge, that is confidence. But that's not always the case. Some stimulus are more likely to occur compared to others. The value of knowledge can then be computed by taking the average of the current knowledge, that is confidence, weighted by the probability of each stimulus occurring in the future. And this weighted average is the value of the agent's current knowledge, V. And mathematically, this is simply written as the weighted average of probability of occurrence and confidence. And intuitively, you can think of value of knowledge as the agent's estimation of how much rewards it will get in the future, given what it already knows about the world right now. So now let's go back and think about the computational problem the agent has to solve. Recall that the goal of the agent is to decide what to explore in the environment to maximize rewards in the future. So in other words, the goal of the agent is to increase the value of its current knowledge V that we just described. And this is because if the agent increases the value of knowledge, then that means it is directly increasing its chances of getting rewards in the future. And it can achieve this goal by taking actions to increase exposure for various stimuli in the environment. Because remember, increasing exposure will increase confidence, and increasing confidence will in turn increase the value of the knowledge. So the computational problem that the agent has to solve is to simply decide which stimulus to increase exposure for. After defining this problem, we can now look into deriving the optimal solution to this problem. So what's the optimal solution? Well, the solution is very straightforward. At every point, the agent can evaluate, if I explore this particular stimulus next, what would be the change in my current value of knowledge? So in other words, all the agent has to do is compute rate of change of value v with respect to exposure h, which is simply given by this equation here. And then the agent can use this computation to select which stimulus to explore. Because stimuli that the stimulus that causes the largest increase in the overall value with respect to exposure, it should be explored first. So basically, this rate of change, that is dv by dhk, signals, or it's telling the agent what it should be curious about. So according to a framework, the agent will explore stimulus that it is most curious about, and curiosity helps achieve the goal of maximizing knowledge. Recall that our environment had rewards far into the future. Think of somebody practicing some skills like tool usage or studying for a test, etc. And this could prove beneficial in the future. Curiosity is like a small pseudo reward that encourages learning exploration even when rewards are far into the future, because curiosity is a useful signal of helping maximize the value of your knowledge. Now, this notion of curiosity also has some interesting connections to the value of information, which is used in traditional multi-unbounded experiments. I'll be very happy to chat more about this offline or during the Q&A. After having this formal account of curiosity, we can look into how our approach relates to previous theories of curiosity. So until now, we have not made any assumption about the form of the environment. Here, we'll consider two different forms of environmental structure. Case one is where past and future are independent of each other. And case two is where they are related to each other. That is, the more you have encountered things in the past, the more likely they are to occur in the future. And here we are not saying that these two are the only two forms of environments that exist, but rather in considering these two extreme environmental conditions, we can realize the relationship between previous theories of curiosity. Now, it turns out if we do the math in our model predicts that when the past and future are independent, then curiosity is a decreasing function of confidence. And when past and future are dependent, then curiosity is an inverted U-shaped function of confidence. And intuitively, this makes a lot of sense. Well, consider this case where the past is independent of the future. So every stimulus is equally likely to occur again in the future. Now here, the agent should explore the stimulus for which it has the least confidence in, because these are equally likely to occur in the future, and the expected values increase most rapidly by learning more about the stimuli for which the agent has least knowledge. And now consider the case when the past and future are correlated. Now here, the stimuli for which the agent has had little exposure and little confidence, they have a very low probability of occurring again in the future, so the agent should not worry about them, and it gives them a low priority for exploration. And the stimuli that are the most likely to occur, well, the agent already has high confidence for the stimulus, It already knows the answer to it, so it should not waste its time on it. And thus, the agent should be most curious about stimulus for which it has moderate confidence, because they still have a relatively high chance of occurring in the future, and the agent still does not fully know how to respond to them. And now we can see how our approach relates to previous theories. So in a sense, case one is akin to novelty-based theories, which predicted curiosity to be driven by novel stimuli. And case two is similar to complexity-based theories, which predicted curiosity to be an inverted U-shaped function of confidence. So to test these predictions, we conducted a behavior experiment and showed that curiosity is indeed influenced by the causal structure of the environment. I don't have the time to go over it, but I'll be very happy to present that later, time permitting, or during Q&A if anyone's interested. So the main takeaway of the previous analysis is that our approach unifies theories, previous theories of curiosity in a single framework, and we suggest that these previous theories have at the heart the same computational problem. And depending on the environment, curiosity can be driven by either novelty or complexity. Next, I'd like to talk about another implication of a model. Now, until now, we had assumed that confidence increases with exposure, but at the same rate for all the stimulus. That is, we had assumed that all stimuli are equally learnable, right? Mathematically, we had said that confidence is an exponential function of exposure, where we had assumed gamma, which is the learning rate, that was 1 for all the stimulus in the environment. Now, what if this is not the case? What if the stimuli are not equally learnable? As an example, the light gray stimulus over here is very easy to learn. The dark gray stimulus is slightly harder to learn. And the stimulus in the darker color takes much longer time to learn and attain 100% confidence. Now, if we do the previous math and differentiation, we'll end up with the following model predictions. First, we predict that curiosity increases progressively with time, and it is highest for moderately difficult tasks. So in other words, the agent would first become curious about easy items, then moderate items, and then eventually the hard to learn items. And critically, it would spend the longest amount of time exploring the moderately difficult item. Next, we predict that curiosity for harder tasks can be modulated by either increasing exposure or by increasing probability of future occurrence. And to test these predictions out, we ran another experiment. So basically, we gave participants three key press games to play. And these games were of varying difficulty. In the baseline condition shown in the left, we recorded the free play of the 3 games. And we see that as per a prediction, on average, people spend more time playing the moderately difficult game. In the exposure condition shown in the middle, participants had prior exposure to the game. And we see that on average, people now spend more time playing the harder game because of increase of prior exposure. In the probability condition shown on the right, there was a bonus round such that the hard game was more likely to come. And as a consequence, in the free play, people played the harder game the longest. So the interim takeaways of what I've presented is that we propose a functional account of curiosity, which says that the function of curiosity is to help achieve the goal of maximizing knowledge. And the causal structure of the environment determines if curiosity is driven by novelty or complexity. And in this way, our framework provides a way to unify previous theories of curiosity in a single framework. Now, one implication of our work is that it suggests that people should be curious about things which maximally increase the usefulness of their knowledge. However, contradictory to this, various studies have demonstrated that people's curiosity can be suboptimal in many, many situations. Now, while our goal is to provide a normative account of curiosity, we can still provide some insights on when curiosity can be suboptimal. So for example, until now, we had assumed that the parameters such as confidence, probability of occurrence, learnability, they were all known to the agents. However, these parameters are estimates, and the agent needs to compute these parameters. So this can lead to curiosity being suboptimal, sometimes just due to simple miscalculations of the parameters. So example, consider an agent that wrongly estimates the wrongly estimates the importance of a stimulus to be lower than its actual value. Then the agent may not become curious about the stimulus, even if the probability of occurrence is very high. And similarly, if people a priori believe a task to be very hard, then they're less likely to be curious about that task without even trying. We can also think about cases when people do not become curious about things, even when they know the value is very high. For example, imagine that someone is studying for a test. The test is going to be very, very important for them, but still they're not very curious about it. Now, if somebody perceives that test or studying for that test to be too difficult or too easy, then that can extinguish curiosity very quickly. And sometimes other tasks that they induce information gap or they're surprising to us, they can distract us from the seemingly important task. For example, while studying for a test, we may be distracted by watching cute cat videos or dog videos. That being said, our framework definitely has some very important limitations, primarily because it's not a process level model. So for one, we do not offer any explanation of the epistemic emotion of curiosity or provide an explanation for why people and animals have a preference for advanced information seeking. We also do not distinguish between curiosity and information seeking. So for example, a person may be curious about whether they're likely to have some kind of cancer, but they still may not choose to seek that information. A person may also seek information such as like filing taxes or financial information, but they may not be curious about seeking that information. Our framework does not explain this difference very well. And because of this, we also cannot explain why people choose not to seek out information for bad news, such as finding the result of their medical tests. Despite all of these, some of the implications of our work are a little bit interesting because this framework provides systematic ways in which we can influence curiosity. So to elaborate, our model suggests that curiosity aims to maximize value of knowledge, which is not just a function of an individual's current knowledge, but also a function of how useful gaining knowledge about that topic is. So curiosity is evoked whenever one comes across topics that help them increase their knowledge or that are useful to them in the future, or both. And this point about usefulness is especially interesting because curiosity is primarily considered to be driven by non-instrumental considerations. But this suggests that curiosity can also be influenced perhaps by instrumental considerations such as perceptions of usefulness. And inspired by this, we have a paper where we explore whether we can stimulate curiosity by manipulating the perceived usefulness of a topic. So for our experiments, we used 2 short articles describing the biology of fruit flies and 2 short articles describing the biology of rats. For each of these 2 topics, that is fruit fly and rat, one article was a high value article and the other was a low value article. The main point of the high value article was to emphasize how research about that animal could be beneficial to medicine. So here you can see that we are basically conveying value to participants about fruit flies. And this article shows that fruit flies share a large percentage of the DNA with humans, and they're very useful for understanding the basis of various diseases. And in contrast, the low value article, it raised questions about whether research concerning that animal could generate any medical benefits. So as you can see here, we are portraying that because fruit flies don't share all of their genes with humans, it is questionable whether they are useful to humans. And note that we matched both these low value and high value articles in terms of length and as much as possible for general content and style. And this is what the experiment looked like. In phase 1, subjects were presented with one of the 2 animals, in this case, fruit flies, and they then provided their ratings for curiosity, understanding, and usefulness on a scale of 1 to 7. They then read one of 2 articles about fruit flies at their own pace. And after reading the article, they once again provided their ratings in knowing about fruit flies. This procedure was then repeated for the second animal, that is rats in this case. So subjects provided their ratings for biology of rats, then they read an article about rats, then they provided their re-ratings. So in summary, in phase 1, subjects read 2 articles in total. One about fruit flies, one about rats, and they provided their curiosity, understanding, and usefulness rating before and after they read each article. And in phase 2, we aim to see how people's information search is affected. So to do this, subjects were presented with 8 facts, 4 facts from each topic. And they had the choice to reveal 5 out of the 8 facts presented to them. And after they made the selection, the chosen facts were then presented one by one. Recall that the subjects read 2 articles in our experiment, one about fruit flies and one about rats. So to test the influence of value on curiosity, we counterbalance these articles such that either subjects read high value article about fruit flies and the low article about rats, or they read high value article about rats and low value article about fruit flies. And our main prediction is that curiosity should be higher for the high value articles compared to the low value articles. So first, we check whether our value manipulation was actually successful in manipulating perceived usefulness. In this figure, the y-axis shows the change in usefulness rating before and after subjects read the corresponding articles. And we can see that the mean rating of perceived usefulness increased much higher for the high value articles compared to the low value articles, which sort of confirms that our value of the manipulation of value was successful. And we next see that as per our hypothesis, value does influence curiosity. That is, people are more curious about articles they perceive to be highly valuable to them. And furthermore, we see that subjects are more likely to reveal facts about high value stimuli compared to the low value stimuli. So to summarize, experiment 1 shows that manipulating perceived value influences curiosity, and this in turn also influences the information people choose to search or reveal. That being said, there is one important confound here, that the increase of curiosity, it could be driven by other factors, such as an increase of understanding. And indeed, we see that people's perception of their understanding also increases, especially for both the high value as well as the low value article. And the effect of our value manipulation on curiosity was partially mediated by understanding. So after this experiment, we had a few questions at hand. First, there is a concern that perceived value is confounded with understanding. And second, while we have seen value influences curiosity, we have still not properly investigated what kinds of value influences, what kinds of information influences value and subsequently curiosity. And to answer these 2 questions, we conducted another experiment. This experiment was quite simple, quite straightforward. The subjects provided their ratings of curiosity, understanding, and usefulness for fruit flies. And they then read a short article about fruit flies and provided re-ratings again. Subjects were randomly assigned to 3 conditions, and the article that the subjects read differed in all the 3 conditions. In condition 1, the article presented interesting facts about fruit fly reproduction. In condition 2, the article showed how fruit flies are valuable to the environment. And in condition 3, the article provided evidence that fruit flies are valuable to medical research. We predicted that subjects' increase in understanding would be similar across the 3 conditions, but their perceived usefulness will not. And lastly, we predicted that subjects' curiosity about fruit flies will increase sharply and more strongly for condition 3. So as per our prediction, we see that while the understanding ratings increases significantly for all the 3 conditions, these 3 groups were not significantly different from each other. And next, although the usefulness ratings increased numerically for all 3 conditions, this increase was not significant for condition 1. So this suggests that presenting interesting facts about a topic is not enough to influence perceived usefulness, at least in the simple task that we have used. And furthermore, perceived usefulness increases much more in condition 3, where people were presented evidence that fruit flies are important for medicine. And lastly, we see that curiosity increases the most in condition 3, and this was significantly different than condition 1 and 2. Furthermore, the increase in condition 1 was not significantly greater than CHARS. So this suggests that presenting interesting facts about a scientific topic is not enough to stimulate curiosity, at least in our task. And to induce curiosity, people need to perceive something to be of direct value of them. Oh, and lastly, after people read the article, we also asked for their surprisal rating. And we find that the effect of our value manipulation on curiosity was fully mediated by perceived usefulness, and it was not reducible to understanding and surprise. So to summarize our overall findings, our experiments show that manipulating perceived value also influences curiosity and in turn influences information search. Furthermore, we saw that simply presenting interesting facts is not enough to influence curiosity. And rather, curiosity is most stimulated when people perceive something to be of direct value to them. This brings me to the end of my talk. And I'd like to end by quickly talking about what I believe is sort of a nice insight of the framework I presented. Our framework hopefully gives us a systematic breakdown of what factors influence curiosity, why they do so, especially it explains why they do so. And future work can look to build interventions to induce curiosity based on any of these factors or a combination of these factors. So first, our framework suggests that we can influence curiosity by inducing an information gap or surprise. This is consistent with previous complexity-based theories and something clickbait websites use all the time. I'm sure you have come across a headline where a website just says, "You wouldn't believe what this person just said." And we end up clicking on it because we want to know what this person just said. And second, our work suggests that curiosity is influenced by perceptions of task learnability. So many people don't become curious about topics in maths or physics or some other related or some other scientific topic, perhaps because they just think it might be very hard and they may not be capable of learning about it. So if an intervention convinces someone that a topic that they think is very hard probably will not be very hard, that might just give them the impetus to seek out more information about that. This also relates to a very interesting intervention used in the education literature, where students are told about the struggles of a scientist. And knowing about the struggles of a scientist makes them realize that the field is more accessible to them. And when they are struggling while studying for that within that field, perhaps that's okay, because even the people that we consider as idols or geniuses struggled. And lastly, even though curiosity is driven by non-instrumental factors, we see that it is possible to make people more curious about seemingly mundane topics by making them see the usefulness of a task. So in conclusion, I hope that I provided some insights on how to induce curiosity and also convinced you that curiosity can be driven by both instrumental and non-instrumental considerations. With that, I'd like to just say thanks to my wonderful advisor and my various collaborators.